Hi, welcome to our statistics oral presentation. Many studies have shown that a person's date of birth can influence their chances of success in high-level sports. In our study, we aim to answer the question, does a hockey player's date of birth affect the round in which they are drafted into the NHL? We conducted a detailed analysis using data from active NHL players and divided their birth dates into 4 quarters, from January to December. For players who were not drafted, we assigned them a virtual round 8 to include them in the analysis. Here are the results. Players born in Q1 had an average draft round of 4.41 and a standard deviation of 2.71. In Q2, the average was 3.23 and the standard deviation was 2.61. Q3 showed a higher average of 3.65 with a standard deviation of 2.84. Most notably, Q4 players had the lowest average draft round at 2.87 and also the smallest variation in draft rounds with a standard deviation of 2.09, based on 38 players in that group.
To collect our data, we use a stratified random sampling method to ensure we have players born in every month of the year. Our sample includes 167 active NHL players chosen from a reliable source like the NHL website and Elite Prospects. This sample size balances accuracy with what's realistic to collect in a short period. The 2 main variables in our study are the date of birth and the draft rounds. We group birthdays by months and quarters to see if there are patterns. We also consider draft years, trends, and player performance to get a better idea of any long-term effects. To avoid selection bias, we include all active NHL players, not just well-known ones. We define active as having played at least 1 game this season. If any data is missing or players is excluded, we make sure to document it so our results stay as fair as possible.
The first question we wanted to answer was, does the birth months impact NHL draft round? As we've seen in this table of descriptive statistics, it doesn't show any real impact. Draft rounds overlap and no quarters are led consistently in early selections. A Welsh test was conducted with the null hypothesis stating that all birth quarters have the same average draft round, while the alternative hypothesis suggested that at least 1 quarter differs. We have found a p-value of 0.53, and at a 5% significance level, we cannot reject H0, indicating there is no significant difference in birth month and draft position.
The second purpose of this study was to determine whether the birth of active NHL players has an impact on their average points per game. A Welch's test was conducted to assess whether there was a significant difference in the mean of points per game across the birth quarters. The null hypothesis claimed that there was no significant difference in the means. On the other hand, the alternative hypothesis suggested that there was at least 1 birth quarter which had a significantly different mean. As a result of the Welch's test, we found a p-value of 0.79, which is greater than the 5% significance level. Therefore, at the significance level of 5%, the data does not provide sufficient evidence to reject the null hypothesis. The result indicates that there is no significant difference in the mean of points per game based on the birth quarter.
One key limitation was the handling of active NHL players who were never drafted. To address this, we placed these players into an 8th round, assuming that their absence from the first 7 rounds reflected their skill level. However, this approach does not fully capture the complexities of the draft process. Another limitation was comparing players' points per game with their birth months. Since different positions influence point per game, this comparison is not straightforward. Defensemen and goaltenders naturally record fewer points than forwards, and playing styles, whether offensive or defensive, also impact point per game. As a result, our findings may apply more to forwards than to other positions. Overall, these limitations suggest that our results may not be fully accurate to the entire NHL population, and careful interpretation is necessary.